Hello, welcome back. In this one, we're going to learn how to apply drop shadows. Okay, so I'm going to select my layer 1, which is my Nike logo, which has the gradient overlay applied on it. And hold down Alt, click and drag to the right hand side while holding down Shift. Okay, so that I duplicate it to the right hand side on a straight line. Now select my guy here, then go into layer styles. You can double click. We can use here. Okay, we can use this option to just add a drop shadows. Perfect. Now this is our drop shadow effect, and as you can see, we can add extra drop shadows on top of drop shadows, right, or behind our drop shadows. So first of all, let's look at the options. Now select my drop shadow. We can see the blending mode. We can see the color of our drop shadow. Then we can change all of this. We can change the opacity of our drop shadow. We can change the angle of our drop shadow. And if you change the angle, it affects the angle of every other effect which you add here. Okay, so it affects the angle of the bevel and emboss. So maybe we should just use this particular angle, 94, or let's say 90. I think 90 is the default. So we can use 90, and then we have the distance. Now look what happens when I bump up the distance. So this is my distance, and we can see that there is now a distance between our drop shadow and our Nike logo. We can increase the spread to make it even spread bigger, okay? And then we have the size, which will increase the softness of our drop shadow. So it increases the softness of our drop shadow. Perfect. So you can see what these sliders do, or what these options do. And we also have the contour here, so we can also edit the contour of our drop shadows, and we can get some really cool effects with these contours. See, really cool effects. And the best part of it is you can add multiple drop shadows, right? So we have the first one, we have the second one. Maybe for this one, we make the distance even further. Okay, maybe the size even bigger, yeah, or smaller. Just depends on what you want to achieve. And we also have the noise. I didn't check this. We have the noise, which enables us to add noise to our drop shadow. Okay, so you can see how we've been able to add multiple drop shadows. And just like we saw in the bevel and emboss, we can also edit the contour map of our effect here. Okay, and edit the contour map of our effect. So maybe change this color to look like this. And yeah, that's it for our drop shadow. And I want to show you one more thing we can do to our effects. Now, while selecting our guy here, just come to your effect. So just click on your effect. So click on your effect. Let me click on my drop shadow effect. And now we see options, right? We see options. Now these options, like this one, shows us which effects are applied. Okay, so we have the gradient overlay, we have the drop shadow, and then we can copy, we can paste, we can clear. So these are really simple things which we have looked at in previous videos, but we didn't look at this guy here. Now this guy, create layers. Now if I click create layers, it's going to ask me some aspects of the effect cannot be reproduced with layers. So what this does is it basically reproduces the effects on a layer. Okay, so we can click OK, and now we have our effect on a layer. Now we can see that some of these can get confusing for you because we've not covered clipping masks. But what it did is, what Photoshop did is, it basically clip masked this gradient layer to the logo, and then added these other ones below. Now these are the layers for our drop shadow. Okay, so I'm going to just do a simple one. So you see, so I'm just going to undo this to have our effect back. I'll just maybe select everything here, scale them down so that we have this, right? Okay, so I'm just going to copy this guy, pulling down Alt and dragging, and I'll remove the gradient fill because it's the gradient that makes it clip mask, but we don't want the gradient fill, so I'll just uncheck the gradient fill. And so I'm going to work with the drop shadows. So right click on the effect and then create layers and OK. So now we have this guy, we have this guy which is our main logo layer. Okay, and then we have this guy on top here which is the shadow layer. So this is the shadow layer, the first shadow, and then this is the second shadow. And when you do that, you're going to see this little icon here telling you that this has been done to the layers, or telling you that the layers have been gotten from this little effect we just applied. Okay, or this little technique we just applied to separate the effect from the layer. Now with this, it gives us more control. Let's hide this guy and work with this one. Now we can resize our drop shadow, so we see that we are basically resizing our drop shadow. And we're definitely going to look at how to use this particular technique to create realistic effects. Okay, effects that look more realistic than what we get on a default. Okay, so for example, let me just give you an example of what I mean. Let's say we add a drop shadow. So we have a drop shadow added, and let's just use this normal contour and this normal contour here. Perfect. And maybe we want to just bring down the size and maybe reduce the opacity. Perfect. Now we have this drop shadow, and we might want to achieve something more realistic than this. So let's say the light is coming from top. So if the light is coming from top, the drop shadow will be casted on the ground. You get? So if we want to create something like that, all we need to do is say create layer. We might then need to distort this drop shadow and move it in such a way that it's gonna look more realistic. You get? Now I haven't taught you how to kind of do these kinds of distortions. I'm using my shift key and using my alt key to do some of these things, but you don't need to follow along because we're going to cover distortions. So we're going to cover how to do some of these distortions that help you achieve realistic looking shadows and realistic looking effects like this. We can't really achieve this with the normal drop shadow, but when we manipulate our drop shadow further, we are going to be able to achieve this. Okay, so I'll just delete this guy and save everything else. So we can save. So this file will be attached, so you can go ahead and see for yourself what we've been able to create and see how the layers have been made up. Yeah, so that will be it for this video. See you in the next one.